to end the podcast, the one thing that I think is very, very important to take away from this and what you said about the Nike example and how we can win within culture. I told that last week, and I made people in the audience be like, oh my God, yes, we need to work on this, is what people pause on is more important than what they click on. So we live in a world right now where you're able to get people to pause. This is where you actually win, because there's like so much that is going on. So when we spoke about, hey, what are the trends that you can own, and the way that you could develop yourself from a behavioral standpoint, if you're able to get your audience to pause, this is a new measure for success. Social sharing is the real measure of ROI, obviously, but where you pause is and I call that a behavioral attribution model, an indirect attribution that we need to start developing on. So that's kind of one thing that I wanted to make sure we speak about, because it's like a burning topic that I'm sharing within the industry.
So today we want to speak about whether culture really eats technology for breakfast, and our guest today is Lea Karam. Lea and I go back a couple of years. We both worked for Media Plus, and Lea is a behavioral scientist dubbed a pioneer in her field by Campaign magazine, and an influencer of hearts, minds, and commercial decisions. What a combination, by Marketing Week. And she advises let me say, premium clients like TikTok, like Amazon, and also like the BBC. And we already had a conversation about culture, but today I really would like to dive in a little bit more into the, let me call it, a brutal reality of what it means to understand culture. In an era where probably most brands think that being fluent on TikTok is already enough to understand what culture is all about. Lea, when brands say they want to be part of culture, what does that usually mean in practice? Is it a hashtag, or is it a Pride logo in June, or probably like 12 months a year? I don't know. Just tell us more about it.
First, thank you so much for this intro, Jörn. It's great to be here. As you said, we go way back and always had a similar way of thinking. So I'm really glad and honored to be here. When we talk about culture and brands talk about culture, it's becoming kind of a recurring conversation, because everyone is trying to jump on, as you just said, trends. But the problem is, when everyone jumps on trends, then what differentiates you? So we need to be more lenient, more strategic about identifying and preempting the next trends. So there's a big difference between short-term fads, so short-term trends, and long-term cultural shifts. So again, there's this misperception that diving into culture means diving into trends, but actually there's a big difference between short-term fads, short-term trends, and cultural shifts. Now, as you said, what brands try to do, the problem is that we've been seeing recently is two things. One, they're trying to mirror Gen Z, for example, or exciting trends and culture, but Gen Z doesn't want that. They can see it. They have a selective memory. They can spot it. Don't try and be that brand, because that doesn't work. So they try to mirror culture, that they lose their assets. The second thing that they try to do is that, I don't know if you've seen recently on TikTok, but all of the comments, at least 40 to 50%, are becoming brand comments. No one invited you to that conversation. If it makes sense, if it fits the context. For example, Popeyes recently posted something and commented, and they posted something on X that said Popeyes, Pope yes. Popeyes, Pope, yes. So very contextually relevant, that works, but you can't just be a brand that tries and jump in on everything. So two things, they try to mirror everyone, especially Gen Z and the younger generation, to survive. And the second thing is, everyone's trying to jump in conversations where they're actually not part of, and they don't do that due diligence to identify those moments.
How is the feedback from Gen Z? I mean, you as a behavior scientist, I would imagine that you are in contact with, sorry, I'm a bit older, with real Gen Z people. So how is the feedback if brands try to kind of like mimic their language and mimic their culture?
They don't like it. They don't like it. You know, they sense it. I work quite closely with Snap as well, and Snap is amazing and brilliant. Look at how much they've been growing. So they're growing because they know how to build this safe ecosystem, this creative ecosystem for Gen Z. Now, the brands that I work with and the brands that get on Snap also communicate to them in this very authentic, connected way. The creators that speak to them are meaningful. So I'd say if you look at Snap, for example, they know how to bridge the faraway galaxy. I call it the faraway galaxy as in Gen Z and Gen Alpha
Mhm.
with brands because of how the platform is developed and how anchored it is in creativity and creative freedom. Now, sometimes when brands try to do the same, sadly, on TikTok, it's a hit and miss because TikTok is all about virality. It's all about, trying to kind of get out there, get exposure, get that UGC content. So sometimes a lot of the brands that are getting cancelled, sometimes this is because it doesn't resonate with the narrative they're part of. And secondly, Gen Z feels like they're being talked at, they're being told what to do, they're being kind of, I don't know, they're being told that there's something, but actually within Gen Z, you've got different types of Gen Zers. So we also need to stop kind of different and not differentiating them and trying to build really cool content at them and start being more intimate with them and within that conversation and listening with them, build brand intimacy, not just brand equity.
How would you like? I want to go back more like first to the let me say not so good example. What is a not so good example for a brand trying to mimic culture but not being really successful at it? And what can we learn from it?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. I think there's so many different brands. I don't want to call out one in particular, but I'll call out like a big example that obviously we all know is anchored within like the advertising industry and all of that. You remember
Mm.
when Kendall Jenner tried to do the PepsiCo ad, right? And that
I
was
used that in a presentation. That
yeah, and I
example.
think
Yes.
that was a turning point for our industry. That was
Mm.
a turning point. There's a full case study that we can build around this because it was a turning point for strategists, for audiences, for CMOs, for everyone. Because that goes to show you that you can't really, really go off what people tell you and of assumptions and of a need that you think that's very fickle that you think exists in the market. You need to really stay true to your yes.
Sorry, can you quickly describe, like, so that everybody knows what we're talking about,
Yeah.
what
So
actually happened?
yeah, so basically they were jumping like PepsiCo was trying to. I mean, I think that people are gonna go and Google it and they're gonna be like, oh my god. So they were trying to kind of jump on kind of the all of it, the police, the BLM and police movement, and try to kind of be allies to everyone. So I forgot what was the name of the actual campaign. I think it was like a couple years back, but it was all about like I don't know being on the with the BLM movement and with the
Yeah.
police, like, putting people together when actually it was such a heated conversation with so many political movements behind it and macro movement that Kendall Jenner didn't belong there in those movements. It was very superficial.
So as far as I remember, it was a made up demonstration
Yeah,
where
yeah,
Kendall Jenner was at the front. And I remember a screenshot by, I think, either the niece or the daughter of Martin Luther King posting and saying, if only Martin had have Pepsi, it would have been so much better. Like being really ironic, almost sarcastic. And
yeah.
I think that says it all, really. Like a brand like Pepsi, what do you have to do with a BLM movement? What do you have to do with culture? And I think that's the point. It's a little bit of like um, genuine. Are you perceived as doing that in a genuine way? So is like Patagonia, for example. I mean, Patagonia is an outdoor brand. They forego tax credits they got from Trump the last time and invested it in national parks. I mean, they're
Yes.
they're serious about it, and they're serious about doing sacrifices. And I think if culture and behavior science is only a means of selling more stuff, which frankly, Pepsi, it seemed like it was doing it, then it's, I mean, that's not genuine. That's just marketing.
Yeah, it's not the goal exactly. I mean, brands in this day of age, brands are becoming entertainment hubs. Brands are becoming media hubs. You know, they've got stories to tell. They've got different formats to tell those stories in. It's not a funnel anymore. It's not this traditional AIDA funnel anymore, from awareness to desire to action. It's a loop. It's a loop. You've got that community at the center, and then you've got that relevance and reach that can kind of get to them. And they're even more selective in choosing who they want to engage with, the content that they actually enjoy, what they want to buy ultimately, because obviously you want to connect with them and portray that identity. They use you to kind of extend that identity. So that the industry as we know it, and I love being part of it because I'm shaking it up, because it's shaking, it's changing. We have to have those bold conversations, those brave conversations, those interesting insights. We have to challenge the norm. Otherwise, there's no way to connect with people. We can't just be static anymore. We can't just be wishy-washy anymore. We can't just be talking at people. Audiences are not passive. They're not passive. You can't target them as if they're passive. They're fandoms, they're participants, they're subcultures, they're connectors, they're employees as well. And they're an ecosystem of people that also create for you and want to connect with you. So don't just market at them, you know?
And to a degree, I think consumers today, if you can say like consumers today, I don't like talking so much about like, oh, Gen Z, and probably like every generation has a lot of similarities, a lot more similarities than we want to understand. Um, but I think consumers today are a lot more emancipated in a
They
way.
are, they
So they
are.
have social media, they can talk to each other, they can talk to each other at scale. So it's not really a surprise that as a brand you have to do a little bit more effort than just inventing a 30-second, capturing
And
on a cultural trend supported by, and we're coming to that, behavioral science, and then it's going to work, because that's not going to work anymore. And I
no,
think
you have
I love it. I love
I
that oh, you need to, honestly,
same.
you need to get your bum off the ground and do some real stuff,
You have to do
and not
something.
and not just do advertising.
Exactly. I mean, you exist for a reason, you know, and if you're not meant to exist, then you have to go back and understand the why. And I think what I'm doing within behavioral science, and you can obviously, I work with a lot of senior execs in tech and entertainment. I built the first behavioral science consultancy in tech and entertainment. So it's really, really going into the use of behavioral science for cultural change and for positive change and to create a purpose. We can't just use it to like nudge here and nudge there, and this is not the point of behavioral insights. I'm bringing it back to what behavioral economics is. I'm bringing it back to really that psychological layer of doing things like that. So, for instance, some conversations I've had with like broadcasters to put their content at the top of the TikTok algorithm to reduce the bias that exists within those echo chambers. This is real behavioral change. And those are things that we have to start developing, building all these growth strategies to build communities and subcultures, booming and helping the experience economy to grow. The experience economy is booming at the moment. So those things, this is real behavioral science. So one of my roles is to make it like a very, very purposeful field. And I'm glad it's happening and there's impact from it, because that's the purpose of behavioral insights. It's not to sell, it's to build.
What's interesting, I just read an article, I think it was this morning, in a German marketing magazine. It's, I think, one of the leading marketing magazines. And they said the purpose-driven media planning is dead, and we are back to just doing profit, which I think is super interesting. I just wonder whether the people think the same way. I just wonder whether consumers are going to think the same way. I just wonder whether you can really get by with just like hopping onto a trend, and then when you think that trend ebbs off, you just hop off the train.
Uh,
Personally, I don't think that's possible, because usually it's usually things are here to stay, and they're not meant to just go away, particularly when you speak about things like culture, because cultural changes is something very profound. So how does behavioral science come into play? So what is it, and sorry, I'm dumb, or I play dumb.
come
What is it
on.
that you're actually doing with behavioral science to support companies to tap into culture the right way?
I think that's again a really good question. One, I don't know who wrote that article, but I have to go and find it. Please, if you can translate it for me, because this is,
Oh
as
well.
you say, people don't need or want that. The second bit is basically with, I mean, I always say like every format, every imprint, every voice, every content stream has an impact on the world we live in right now. So understanding people is more important than ever. It's your only way to actually win, because you need that behavioral and human compass to understand where to grow, the communities that love you, how you could grow those communities, and how you can build your brand around that for to have commercial success, but to also have cultural change. So the way behavioral science comes in into the equation, it could range from audience growth strategies, behavioral interventions that could turn those audiences into communities, cultural intelligence strategies for, for example, the algorithm example for big tech companies and broadcasters. How can we get younger generations, for instance, to watch long form content? So again, behavioral insights in this case, for instance, comes in to support, give that real audience, fandom, subculture, community layer, guide clients into the best growth, perception, engagement, advocacy strategies, and actually have real psychology backed by data to be able to drive this. I mean, the shock of the new is nothing new, right? Look at teenagers and rock and roll, So
Hmm.
we help making sense of the world based on on our past, our present, and our future, and that's why it's more important than ever.
So if I was a political party, I would definitely hire
I
someone
love
like you
that.
or
I
you
love
because
that. So many politicians or people in politics always not ask me directly, but actually it happened a few times. But what I say is, who owns the media owns the power. So I would rather at the moment influence the media in the right ways, because
Mhm.
our world is chaotic right now, and it accesses so many people. Do that, and then I don't know, but yes, if you're a political party that really has a purpose and wants to do something great, then yes, behavioral science is huge within that industry.
I don't want to go too much into politics and particularly not into like right wing, left wing, what just keep it analytical. But in the sense of keeping it analytical, there is a right wing party in Germany, and they own the social space. And I always ask myself, what happens to all the other parties? Are they you? That can't only be dumb people in those parties. I mean, they
Yeah,
need to understand, and they're not. I mean, it's they're not spending a lot of it. They're just having more content and they're just more present. And you see a lot of snippets and you see interesting small sized videos. And what's really interesting in a couple of the recent state elections, and you wouldn't think about it because right, I mean, what do you think about Nigel Farage and all these people? And you think like, oh yeah, they're probably like voted by some old white man. No, it's the young people. It's the young people who vote for the right wing parties, partly because they're really clever in getting their message across. And as I
yeah,
said, I don't want to judge anything. It's just like they're clever at getting their message across using culture and tapping into culture. And I think this is extremely clever, and you can learn from it. And I think you can actually if you copy their strategy, you have a good case for being successful in
I
social
mean, I
media
mean,
and behavioral marketing.
you hit the nail on the head. I had that conversation a week ago, literally a week ago. We were talking about how some parties don't have the facts right, but they have the feelings right.
Mhm.
And behavioral insights is all about
Very good.
emotions.
Can I write that down and steal it? That's a
Yeah,
really
of
good
course, of
quote.
course, of course. Yes, of course. It's really important to know that, because you hit the nail on the head, because they tap into those emotions, and behavioral insights is all about emotions. So we help the right people. I handpick the clients I work with, literally handpick them. Like recently I've been in conversation with the team GB Olympics, not on the normal, because and like it's not that we're normal, not on the average Olympics, because everyone's normal, not on the other types of Olympics, like para and all of that, on something called Special Olympics. So it's Olympics for neurodiversity. So if someone has Down syndrome, if someone has, so think about like the show Love on the Spectrum, but for sports. So I want to help them to grow their community, to build advocates, to raise awareness. Those are really purposeful moments and things that the community loves. Gen Z wants that. They want social responsibility. They want inclusivity. They want more of those experiences.
May I say something about good? Like it's a bit of a side topic, but what I was thinking about Paralympics. Well,
Right.
there's the Olympics, and then
Yeah.
there's a break of 2 weeks, and then there is the Paralympics. And I always wondered, why don't they do it together?
Yeah, that's
And
a good.
not in the sense of that somebody who has only one leg should run against Usain Bolt or something. That's rubbish. But like, why don't they do like? And then it's just like it's 100 meter and a 400 meter. It's just 100 meter. I don't know, special Paralympics and a 100 meter normal Olympics, and they run at the same time, or they're just one after the other. And I thought,
Yeah,
like, in terms of like culture and in terms of purpose and in terms of like bringing things together and also behavioral science, I think that's a lot more interesting. That would be a lot more interesting than having two separate events.
yeah. I
That's
mean, you
more a
have it.
social question. Sorry, but
No, but
I'm
no, but you have something right here, because like it's all about the concept of framing. So if you frame it as something that's different and something that comes after
exactly.
and something that has less investment and traction, then it becomes something less exciting for people to spend time looking at. There's so much to look at. There's so much content to consume. So yeah, you're completely right. I think that putting it in the same, it's a bit like when people come and say, "Oh, you're a great female leader." Female. I know I'm a woman. I know I built a
Yes.
big platform, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm happy that I did. But I see myself as a leader, and I
Perfect.
can
Yes.
inspire women, and I can inspire women. But I never thought about it in this way before
Yeah.
people came and told me this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that. You make it not normal, or you make it something that's in works in isolation, than something that's actually quite, yeah, okay. And like I succeeded because of my hard work and my connections, my brain, my clients, what I built back then at Media Plus, what I'm building now with Mindscope. So that's why I don't see it as me being a woman, like a big foundation of my success. I don't know how to explain it, or something that I have to like say every
Well, it
day.
has nothing to do with the fact that you happen to be a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
what I don't and that is what I don't like coming actually probably originally from the political right and now coming more from the left is just like this sort of like you're a woman, that's why you are amazing. No, you are amazing and you happen to be a woman. If you were a 50-year-old man or a 70-year-old man, you would probably be also amazing. It doesn't really matter whether you're a man, whether you're black, white, brown, yellow, and whether you come from Mars or from Earth. It
Yes,
really doesn't matter.
exactly. And I know that like historically women have had obviously like more, in the past, more issues, and we still have that, or like within society. Obviously we still have a lack of safety. We still have a lot of things that, I mean, equality and equity is far from being achieved. But I think that always putting me in that box means putting other women in that box, means getting them to be a bit like, I don't know how to explain it, getting them to also be a bit biased about what women have to overcome, instead of seeing the glass half full. So I've always seen the glass half full, and I feel like that also helped women, because I've always went 10 steps ahead, ran so fast. And if I kept listening to people, and just like people putting me in a box, you're a Lebanese, you're a woman, you're this, I forget. I literally forget. I'm just a human with a soul, but I'm glad about those things. They're my strength. But at the same time, I don't think we should look at them in isolation.
Do you feel there is a trend that is recognizing people more for who they are than for what they are? Or is that similar then compared to 10, 20 years ago? I'm just trying next question would be, is there still a blind spot in
Yeah.
behavioral science where
Yeah.
that is something nobody's really looking at?
I think that's a good question as well. I think always good questions. I think that I mean, obviously women are obviously getting more recognized with a lot of like awards, etc. But again, all of I mean, we only kind of 2%, I think it was. I need to check the stat again, but I think it was about 2% of VC investments going to women. So I know there's still like so much to do, and I know that so many new institutions want to support that. But I feel like I, as a woman, and as someone that was celebrated for my achievements, I feel like there are two types of people. Some people see me as, again, like we see each other, like, oh, like we are peers, we are people that build things together, we develop, people at the top collaborate, we're collaborators, great. But I do still think that other people, which is not that bad, see it as, oh my god, this is so unique, she's the first Lebanese woman to do this, and the first woman to do this, and the first woman to achieve this, and which is
I didn't
great.
even know you were Lebanese.
Yeah, literally, see, so it creates like surprise. Now you have more questions, but it creates like surprise, and it creates excitement and it creates delight, and people love surprise. So I feel like when they see my face, because all the top behavioral scientists are men, and I love them. Like
Okay.
I know
Yeah,
them
yeah,
all.
no,
Like,
understood. Yes.
because I'm the only woman, I feel like they're like, oh my god, like you're so unique in a good way. It makes you stand out. So there are two types of people, but I don't think it has facilitated or accelerated my career in any way, and I don't think it has been a detriment to my career in any way. If I'm honest, I was lucky enough at Media Plus, before that at BBDO, at Publicis, to be so well surrounded. Even now with like my company, my clients, my partners, it's been amazing. So I don't feel like I ever had that struggle, but I know a lot of women do, and they come to me with those struggles, especially in finance or in more static industries. So I know it's there and I hear them. So as a behavioral scientist, I want to fix that bias, but my way to fix it is to potentially normalize it, because not normalizing it is what makes it even more like new. You see what I mean?
Normalizing and at the same time still surprising people, because I
Yes,
loved what you said in terms of people like surprises. I'm a
I love it.
strategist. I know, like, it's in strategy is always
They love you.
wrapping a dry analysis in a clever surprise. And
Exactly.
that is what strategy, I think, what strategy is all about. And it's all about doing things differently than you would expect people to do.
Exactly.
How does that work out with behavioral science? Is that similar in a procedural kind of way? And again, like, what would be like the surprising behavioral insights that
Mhm.
nobody else is looking at currently?
Yeah, yeah. So do you mean like from an example, or from like a broad point of view in the world?
Both.
Okay, so from like a macro point of view, I actually classified surprise and novelty as one of the main four behavioral factors that are happening in the world right now. So it's a surprise and novelty is one. The
Hmm.
power of now, the zeitgeist of today, how we live, how we like that instant gratification, the ecosystem that we live in. Heuristics is the third one. Mental shortcuts, how we're trying to adopt the halo effects and different bits and pieces to get there.
Hmm.
And typically social norms, social proof, community, availability heuristics, all those things. That's the fourth one, because again, we want to feel part of a tribe, of a community, of a subculture. I mean, subcultures are multiplying. Look at, we've got soundbite lovers, we've got true crime documentary lovers, we've always had subcultures since forever. Teenagers and rock and roll, punk music, but
Hmm.
now with social media, they're multiplying more than ever. So I'd say those four macro factors, from subcultures, social proof, kind of those heuristics, those shortcuts, that instant gratification, to the power of now, the zeitgeist of today, to kind of novelty and surprise. Those are four elements that came together. I spoke about that at a conference, and someone came up to me after, and they were like, "Oh my God! Now I know why Trump got elected in the U.S." Again, going back to that point, all those macro factors play in his favor.
That
So
is
that's,
so. Trump is such an interesting example, and he got elected twice.
yeah.
And I mean,
Oh,
some people might think or might have the feeling, and I understand it, might have the feeling that he did a very good job during his first term. I think he benefited from the good things that the president previously had done, probably. Like,
not fun.
usually, like, why? I mean, you come in and you change things and things happen at an instant. No, there's a legacy of what happened before. But I remember I went to I spent some time, about 3 years in New York. I lived there, I worked there. I was chief strategist of a Dentsu company. And I was talking to my team, and most of them, as you can imagine, in advertising in New York, there are more like so-called liberals. And I said, look, guys, it's your fault. It's your own fault that Trump was elected. And they were stunned, and it was like, why do you say that? Why do you can't say that? Because it's the stupid rednecks who voted for Trump. Yes, but you made them.
But
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
by
The
by
law,
trying to exclude everything but your own opinion, you created a so-called anti-culture, right?
yes.
An Asterix and Obelix culture, the
Yeah,
Gallian little village. You
yeah,
created that, and that made people vote for Trump because they didn't want to take it anymore.
yeah,
Congratulations. And I think the same thing happened again.
again,
It happened
yeah.
again. And yes, I don't, I mean, I don't know Kamala Harris personally, but the way she got to be the candidate of the Democratic Party wasn't really a democratic process. And I
I
think,
think
again, many people thought, oh, this is a typical example of the swamp that Trump wants to drain. So let's vote for him again. And now a lot of black people voted for him, and a lot of Hispanics voted for him. And
exactly.
suddenly, all that, and I think that's culture as well, all that culture of, okay, Trump is right wing, he is
Yeah,
a racist, so nobody of color votes for him. Oh yes, a lot of black men voted for him, and you know why? Because he came across as a real man. You might not like it, and I personally don't like it either, but that's a cultural background, and you didn't do your homework. You didn't look at the culture of people and look at the culture of men, because they also had a vote. Everybody has a vote.
exactly. That's the thing. That's exactly. You have to stop. You have to remove the myths or the assumptions that you've got. And again, behavioral science is all about experimental theories and going into and peeling the layers of people and understanding their true motivators, understanding the true reasons why they do something. You just said it. You said, oh, but they also had a boat. So having a boat can put you in that tribe. You see what I mean? So they don't look below the surface. And two, we're in a salad of two things, social media and on social media. So we're in an ecosystem where everything's shared, everything's connected. You have access to an algorithm that biases you even more because it puts you in echo chambers. I mean, I spoke about Andrew Tate on one of the biggest stages of the UK with the Channel 4 CEO and the snap president. I literally said the name Andrew Tate because I was so frustrated
You
with
dared to say the name Andrew Tate.
actually all this because we have to work towards not fixing the algorithm because we both know from like our data background as well it's not that possible, but we can make it more fair, we can balance it out, we can add the right modules to support it, like putting broadcasters at the top of the algorithm to create more factual content, removing the friction, putting more news outlets on Snap so we could actually remove the friction and get them to watch interesting unbiased content. So there are two things that are happening. People are tired of social media, they're tired of things, but yet they still do it because, as you said, it's at our fingertips. We've got everything here. We're humans. There's a fear of missing out. All our lives sit and rely on one phone. We want to be entertained. We want to be entertained quickly. The For You page is literally called For You page. It's very relevant for yourself. So there is this kind of tension between wanting to be online and wanting to be offline, which is why we're seeing social media and on social media. So people are on social media, they binge watch, they end up in that algorithmic bubble, especially when voting happens or big events happen, political events happen, those macro contexts happen, they overconsume. And then when they're just going about their day and doing things, there is this trend around not wanting to be on social media, especially with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. That's why pop-ups in Soho are booming. They want to reconnect. It's the law of polarity. There's so much disconnection that they want to reconnect with each other.
Very good point from someone who used to work in a media agency to someone who used to work in a media agency. I love
Really?
the idea of pop-up stores, and I
Yeah,
love the idea of experience marketing, because I also think an experience
boring.
is a lot more effective than any click-through ad you
There
can see on
is.
Facebook. However, how do you scale it? So love the pop-up store culture. So, and now let's jump quickly into the cash. How do you scale that stuff? How can brand use or make use of the signs that you're providing?
Yeah, yeah. This is really, really good because what you could do, one, you've got more tools than ever. You know that you've got image recognition tools at the moment when you look at
Mhm.
Meltwater and different platforms, or you could actually spot the logo wherever your logo is actually there or a picture of it. AI, predictive AI, what it does beyond generative AI, ChatGPT, and the likes of it, predictive
Mhm.
AI is growing. So you could actually spot where your logo is and then the mentions and the people and the types of communities that sit there to then retarget them, but also create a really interesting world around them. So there is a way to bridge both worlds. You just have to be very lenient in audience strategy, audience mapping, audience measurement. So it's all going to depend on your brand, but the experience economy. I mean, I was doing the keynote for the World Experience Organization 2 weeks ago at London Experience Week, and I'm their behavioral psychologist for a reason because it keeps booming. People want immersive experiences. People want to dance at Abba Voyage and then post things around Abba Voyage. People want to be at the War of the Words. People want to be at the Para Skateboards pop up. They want this. They crave this. Your average 22-year-old is more likely, 3.4 times more likely to kind of share reels, TikTok, snaps from museums, the British Museum, National Gallery, etc., than research one luxury handbag. So the experience economy is always,
Wow.
yeah, so you need to have the right tools at your disposal to listen to them and build the experiences and the brands and the products and the services that are going to suit them so you could get that cash flow back as well.
I remember it was 5, 6 years ago. I was still in New York, and we had Omega. I think Omega
Yeah,
Watches as a
yeah,
client, or was it a pitch? I don't remember. And I remember writing a strategy and having really like spending 20 minutes talking about the new luxury, which
yeah,
is experience rather than stuff. So,
yeah.
and particularly for a luxury brand that relates on the stuff side of things, which is it's a watch. It's a very expensive watch. It's really important to understand that new side of luxury, and then we tweaked it around how
And
Omega
then you
could
build
use
a
that.
loop.
And
Yeah, you build a social loop around it. Yeah.
so that's what I find very, very interesting in terms of behavioral economics and culture. One of the things you said about AI face recognition, because I would be really interested. How does AI play into that? We recently had a conversation, and I said I did a data science training, and it was
Yes.
really tough. And ChatGPT was my best friend, not only in terms of helping me to write code, but also like cheering me up when I was sitting at my desk at 1 a.m. at night eating donuts and crisps and drinking Coke. Honestly, since I have done this, I can totally understand why the typical coder is more pale, and probably because he hasn't eaten enough, or just junk food, because it's what you need. It's so frustrating sometimes if
Yes.
you forget, you don't do the square bracket, you do the round bracket, and that's your major mistake, and you don't find it. And it's just so annoying. And then ChatGPT would cheer me up. It's like, hey, yeah, no problem. We're gonna make it. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna show it to you. Just copy the code, and I tell you where the mistake is. And I go, oh,
Yeah,
that's
because they
nice of you.
guide
And I
you.
had a real conversation with ChatGPT.
Look, because we are such in a world of connection, but disconnection. Who's our who cheerleads us anymore? Who cheers on us anymore? We've got our friends, our family. That's amazing. But imagine having a constant cheerleader that reinforces your beliefs, your ego, your value on a secondly basis. That's a human's dream. We are driven by ego. We are people that's why behavioral economics
Yes.
exists.
However, because I was using it quite often, I realized there is, at some point, it wears out. At some point, I realized it's not real. It's just the same thing over and over again. And
That's
even if
connection.
I always call him, he might be an it or a she, I don't know. But for me, ChatGPT is a he. Whenever it was running out after 5 from, yeah, and the next time we're going to solve it. And no, you're not. No, actually, you're not solving it.
Voice
And now you're
voice.
getting on my nerves. So I had to switch it off and I had to like do other
You're like,
stuff
I
or
need
do
a
more on
human.
my own or just try Google or try to read somewhere else. And that's what I find amazing. And that's why I really think in the end, culture will eat technology or AI for breakfast. It's not meaning that AI is going to die. I think AI will be thriving like that. But nothing can beat culture and nothing
No,
can beat like true behavioral science and truly and deeply understanding people.
100%. I mean, there's a reason I'm at all those AI events. Meltoto AI in marketing, game changer, all those big AI events, because you need that human compass, that understanding. And I was about to say, culture is technology for breakfast, because culture is something you can steal away from us. Everyone says, anyone can take away your reputation, no one can take away your character. Our character as human beings is culture, our reputation is technology. So we build things, we innovate, we change things, we shake things up, we develop, we build new platforms, we do everything. But what's left? What's left? How we connect with each other. You just said you had someone to cheer you on, you had ChatGPT to cheer you on, but then you needed a human. You needed something different. You needed that connection. We're seeing it with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They're ditching their phones because they want to be with each other. I have stats. So I started my Gen Alpha prediction. So they're 0 to 14 in December, and shared some of them at the Technology for Marketing e-commerce expo in London. And some of those predictions were really interesting because I mentioned that we used to extend our physical identities digitally. Now they're looking to extend their digital identities physically. So
Oh, interesting. How does that
there's
work?
there's a reason Pinterest is booming as well, because this is where they kind of create their personal interest around home decor, sports, fashion, music. It's a personal ecosystem. And then they go out there and they want to be in person, to play sports, group sports, including skateboard is booming. Football, tennis, they ask their parents to go and play for football clubs, especially young girls who are following the women Lionesses football team in London. We saw a 400% increase in football sign up for young girls between 11 to 13. So that's creating the law of polarity is true cultural human behavior. The law of polarity. Too much of this brings this. It's
Yeah.
not AI, it's human AI. It's not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence.
That's what I find super interesting. Because yes, it used to be you had a real so-called real world identity, and you would take it into your digital identity, and there you would be a lot more relaxed and a lot more funny, and you only had fun, and everything was
So
great
many friends,
and
4,000 friends.
super.
Yeah.
And now it's the other way around. So what comes first? I'm just curious. So what comes first is the digital identity, and
Yes,
then
and then
people try, and then they're like, okay, what does that mean in the 3D world
yes,
when I go
that's
to
what
the supermarket?
yes, that's what's happening. And this is really interesting because two things are happening again here. The first thing is we're seeing a boom of AR, augmented reality, like spectacles and all those things, to be able to reconnect both worlds and make it easier for us to connect, because there's a tech filter. Because from digital to physical, there's a tech filter that never happened before. The second thing that happens is they are trying to find out who they are. I mean, there are so many conversations about Gen Alpha at the moment around they don't know who they are. They don't know what to identify as. There are so many trends around them being lost. So there's this kind of tension that's happening, and that's why there are so many new policies in schools around social media and kind of bringing people together. There's this tension between who am I online, who am I offline, and can I just be my own person offline? So this is really happening at the moment as well. But the core of everything is there is a craving for reconnecting in person, reconnecting with friends, having experiences, playing sports, going to arts exhibition, going to music events, the culture. There is a craving of culture that's happening right now, but it has a tech filter right now.
Okay, which what I find one of the things before we come to an end, one of the things I
Oh,
find
wow.
interesting is sorry.
I could speak to you for ages.
Oh yeah, I'm happy. Like we can let's go. Is the change in the music industry?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my friends from university, he works for I think it's called BPI, the British Phonographic Institution, and it used to be like they used to make most of their money by selling CDs, by selling
Okay.
physical
Yeah.
goods.
Yeah.
And then the whole digital revolution came, and that whole system went down the drain basically because now everybody can like type in ABBA,
I,
the winner takes it all on YouTube, and maybe you have to listen to one spot, one advertising spot, but actually you can find it somewhere where you can hear it and watch it more or less free of charge.
yeah.
So the music industry, I think they reacted in quite an interesting way. You now you have a lot more concerts, you have a lot more tours, but to get a ticket, it's not
It's
like it used to
expensive.
be like 25 euros. And now it's like
Yeah.
bloody 200 euros for a ticket. And then you're at the back of the hall, which I
Yeah.
think is for me an amazing example how you react to a business model that is dying and you turn it into an experience economy,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
of course a concert is a different, you can hear a CD and you can have like really great headphones, but the energy of a concert is amazing. The energy of a football match is amazing. The energy of live events is amazing. So while we're all getting more artificial reality, the real thing, I think, gets a lot more value. And when the real thing gets a lot of value, it's so much more important
So
to know what you're
exactly.
talking about and to have someone like you who knows and feels what the
Mhm.
culture really is, because only then you can get those events right, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, completely. You hit the nail on the head again because at the experience economy, we talked a lot about this. So the word experience organization, their amazing CEO Sam, their VP of James, their amazing CEO James, and their VP of marketing Sam, who's a really good contact of mine. I've worked with her before. They basically built something so unique because the experience economy is booming. It's actually in the London's mayor growth plan. He actually said the experience economy and creative industries. So basically, as you said, creating that social loop, making sure that we delight people because people remember. And I actually had 4 different points when I kicked off my keynotes. The first one is the experience economy is booming because if I remember well, I said that like audiences are bombarded with information and they just want a place to reconnect with each other. The second bit was more around how people love to digest learning, for example, and science with art. There are new ways to provide learning and to be productive in an environment that's interesting. The third bit is the fact that people remember feelings, not things. They remember moments, they remember foundations, they don't remember something that's more tangible. And like the fourth thing is more around how you could build an identity. So I said social media is where people seek that identity. Experiences is where people build that identity. And that's really important to know because whenever they're out there looking at an ecosystem, looking at communities, looking at friends, if they can find their friends on social media anymore, they can only find them on Snap because social media has become so like non-social, then they're able to actually get to a point where they can actually experience things and build their identities. And as you say, be with their football teams, be with their favorite artists, to be in an art exhibition, discovering new things, discovering our history as human beings. So as a behavioral scientist that works in media, I'm saying that there's something that has to be done with social media. We are exploring it, looking into it, but there needs to be more of an integration between experiences and advertising, media and experiences, AI and that kind of human, really human experience, AR and that really human experience. But it's attention that only us in the industry can start to solve.
What is a trend you would kill? What is a trend you
Kill.
think that's bullshit. Just forget
Uh,
it.
all those men sexist trends, like I don't know, I'm not in that world obviously because I'm not in them, but there's
Mm,
always a trend with boys or men that just like come through that's like a bit not kind of not ethical at all, and just like
mm.
I don't like that. But I think I'd say beyond this, beyond like an actual like human human trend, if I think about something that I would let me think, there are so many of them and they just come and go. See, they just come and go so quickly that I have to think about one on the top of my head. I think it would
Or one you
be
love.
when I
What do you
well,
think, like, if you now had to give a presentation you would get like a huge amount of money to give a presentation tomorrow to a company, and they go like, we want you to share the one single trend that we need to hop on yesterday.
I think potentially the fact that like I know. So basically at Snap Forward we were all there. It was the Snap Executive Leadership Summit. It was last week. Amazing. I mean, we had from creators to celebrities to like everyone was there. Michael Corcoran, the guy behind
Hmm.
Ryanair, him and his team was there. He was is awesome. He basically spoke so much about what came behind Ryanair, how it wasn't like obviously a teenager behind it, but everyone thought it was a teenager. How he actually created a super interesting kind of with his team, obviously, way to use the fact that they're bad. You know, like the Volkswagen ad from ages ago that they're second best, like all those things, like all that layer to be successful. So I'd say instead of saying a particular trend, because trends, you know, can come and go, I'd say maybe like more of a manifesto and like an ethos. He said strategy takes sacrifice. So what I'll say is, in this case, you have to really understand that whoever you're talking to, whatever you're building, whatever you're developing, is not just your story. You have to understand that it takes really, really being on the ball and being proactive. Ryanair was the first to do that. A trend could be laughing at yourself as a brand, but that also means being authentic and portraying something different. So I'd say if you were to do something successful, I'd recommend not laughing at yourself, but really being proactive about things that people are not doing,
Mm.
challenging the market, creating an identity that's so strong that even if they criticize you, you'll win. So I think that's like a more of a marketing trend. They say that brand equity is whenever people can forgive your mistakes. So I'd say that's something that in this ecosystem you should start doing. I don't recommend any particular trend because it depends on the industry and what the brand is and what they're trying to do. And again, there are so many of those, from like those dances to sports to entertainment to AR and all of that. But I'd say more in terms of like don't be scared of taking bold risks and creating something so aligned with being wrong.
On that note,
Okay.
Lea, thank you very, very, very much for your time. I
That
really
was
appreciate it. That was a really interesting, great discussion.